Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good, Conrad. Did you hit record?
I hit record, and we are live. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us over at adfreeshows.com. We normally record on a Wednesday morning and post on a Thursday morning, but we had some tech issues yesterday, so we're recording on a Thursday morning on the heels of one heck of a Dynamite last night, Jim.
Yeah, it was. I've been consuming a tremendous amount of product. I go on these rabbit hole searches, I guess. Tuesday night, I think I watched 5 hours of wrestling on Vice, and that was an interesting experience. A lot of things you could talk about on that show. Some great memories and some not so great. So I started my week off with those 5 hours, and those guys do a good job with the documentary style things. There's just so much data you got to acquire, accumulate, and embrace. It's hard, really hard. So I did that, and then last night on Wednesday night, I watched Dynamite. I thought it was a hell of a show.
Oh yeah.
One thing too that's kind of cool is how, and I don't know what the reason is. It may just be people that's pushing buttons and so forth. I don't know, but the show looks cleaner. It looks slicker. The production values have increased noticeably. The graphics area is really good. It's just outstanding.
Can I ask you about something I saw last night?
Sure.
I saw for the first time, I don't think I've ever seen this before. When Renee was standing sort of ringside with the entrance behind her after Okada was already in the ring and Eddie Kingston was coming out, his music is playing like always and all that. And she's talking over it and through it. And that's just sort of happening in the background. It felt like an NFL sideline reporter. And I thought it was really awesome. It made me sit up and pay more attention because it was so different. I had a real sports feel and I loved it. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I sure did. Pardon me. I sure did. And I liked it. It's a nice little element to add to the show. So somebody had a real good idea there, I think, with you, Conrad. It got my attention. It helped my attention, and it kept me tuned in. It's funny how Tony's vision of what the order of matches. I think the second week in a row we had Mercedes Moné open the show, if I'm not mistaken, and it's obvious she's got a lot of fire as an in-ring wrestler. She makes one of the great comebacks, and very electric, very excitable. So I thought that was interesting how to start the show. You can tell they have high hopes for the young lady, and she's very talented. So then rolling into the Okada match, that was much anticipated. He's a hell of a hand. I called Wrestle Kingdom. What was it? What Wrestle Kingdom was it I was at? But anyway, I did commentary at Wrestle Kingdom, and he worked on that show. And I thought he and
Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah, Shinsuke. I thought they were the two best wrestlers on the card by far. And I remember talking to Triple H and said, "Man, you need to get all over this Nakamura dude." I said, "He's got a little Freddie Mercury in him. He's got a little killer wrestler in him. He's got great facials. He's in great shape. He's not too old." And so all of a sudden, then eventually down the road, we see that Shinsuke is a member of the team and does a hell of a job. But Okada he's an amazing performer. And the nice thing about this deal, Conrad, is that Tony's getting a lot of these talents. Ospreay, who's phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal. Mercedes Moné, and who else was I thinking about?
Ospreay, Okada, and Mercedes are the new three.
Yeah. So I think we've made a great move with those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good. It's good, and it helps the roster, and it helps to add balance and stuff like that. So pretty damn cool. So anyway, I watched a lot of wrestling this week. I can tell you that.
Hey, you mentioned that you were watching a little bit of Vice. I can only assume that you were watching Dark Side of the Ring. Shout out to Evan and Jason, the two fantastic creators of that show. And I know they've been working hard. And so far, I think we've seen John Tenta and Buff Bagwell and Terry Gordy. I really enjoyed hearing from the Gordy kids. I don't know why, but I just find myself pulling for them, both Ray and Miranda. I just find myself pulling for them and their whole family. And what a special performer Terry Gordy was. When you
Oh,
think about, all the great ones, sort of the what could have been. I mean, he's got to be near the top of the list, right? I mean, he still would have had he not had the unfortunate circumstance on the plane that forever changed him. That was broken down in pretty great detail on the show. You got to think he still had several great years ahead of him. No?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because he knew how to work.
Yeah.
He knew the psychological part of the application of pro wrestling. I think, looking back on my 50 years in wrestling, that Terry Gordy was as good and athletic a big man, as a heavyweight, because he worked some amazing contests at 300 plus pounds.
Yes.
Just an amazing talent. So he was a find. It's hard to believe that he was like 14 or 15 before he got his driver's license. He was wrestling indie shows. So that's how you get better. I mean, I'm not endorsing not getting an education and so forth and so on, but golly, he started out just as a kid, and some of that footage that they had was priceless.
Yes.
I just thought that was all, and how he changed his look and how he started filling out and so forth. But he was as good as I ever saw. There's a certain little group of those killer type baby faces. And you name them two or three names. Somebody's going to say, well, you left off so and so. This is right off the top of my head, but he was in that league of Hanson and Brody.
Wow.
Beat your ass up, and it looked real, and it was real. I just thought it was terrific. So I enjoyed the Gordy one as well. Like you said, Connie, I had a vested interest in that situation because we worked together for Cowboy. There's a nice little shot there on YouTube. By the way, YouTube's got over 100,000 viewers now. That's
Hey,
great,
congratulations, Jim. Yeah, check us out if you haven't already. GrillingJR.com is where you can find our YouTube channel. We're going to be going live in the new year whenever there's some big major news. And JR is near a computer, and I am too. So if you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button and be sure to turn on the notifications bell. And while you're there, by the way, with your Google machine out, can we recommend, you heard JR mention in my 50 years in the business, he's got a brand new book out. Business is about to pick up. You can pre-order it right now. jrbook50.com. We're home stretching it before it's released. I've had a chance to sort of get a preview copy. I highly recommend it. I think people are going to be talking about this like it's one of the best wrestling books that's ever been written. I told JR when I read his second book a few years ago, this is one of the very best. I mean, it's up there with Mick's very first one. It's up there with Bret Hart's. This is a different style book. It's easy to read in the John. Lots of short stories. Highly recommend it. It is an excellent gift for the wrestling fan in your life and a collectible you want, especially if you're a JR fan, and certainly you are if you're listening to this show. Why not celebrate 50 years of Jim Ross with our pal Paul O'Brien, who's done such a fabulous job on so many of these books? I guarantee amazing. You won't be disappointed. Pre-order right now. Let's show JR some love for 50 years of wrestling, and go right now, jrbook50.com.
That's a lovely idea, Conrad. Thank you very much. I had a blast working with Paul as usual. He's so smart. He can get inside my head, and I don't know if that's good for him or not. I don't know how the community is there, but he's just really great. And how he interprets what I tell him and what we talk about and my dialogue, whatever. He's just good at interpreting what I'm saying and what I feel. So we're excited about it. I'll be doing some signings. We'll have a list of them here coming up. I've got one in Jacksonville.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good deal. And I'm going to try to bring books so we can sell some books and we can, sign them and all that good stuff.
Well, we're looking forward to that, and we'll be staying tuned here for more information on where we can see you and get some of those books autographed. But today, our topic is The Rock, one of the big blue chippers. I'll never forget you calling him that around Survivor Series 1996. I'd say it worked out as a pretty good hire for old JR. And today we're going to be covering his 1998 into his 1999. But before we do talk about what happened way back when, I wanted to see what you thought about The Rock coming back, man. It looks like we're going to be seeing The Rock main eventing night one of WrestleMania. It'll be Rock and Roman against Cody and Seth. And somehow, some way now, I guess this will be 3 WrestleMania nights in a row where Rock and Roman have been closing the show. Of course, they closed night 2 last year. They're going to close night 1 and I guess night 2. And The Rock is right in the middle of all of it. This probably wasn't the original plan, but anytime The Rock is around, that's got to be good for business, no?
Absolutely. Golly. It's hard to read comments from those that criticize Rock's return and how he returned, et cetera, ad nauseum. But stop and think about that. If you're the booker or a booker, if you're running the show and you get an opportunity to retain the services of the great one, then you don't even think about it.
Right.
It's not that's a very easy decision to make. So I'm glad that he's back. He seems to be having a good time. He certainly seems to be steering his own ship.
Yes.
And I have no problem with that. As I've said here on the show many times, back in the Mid-South days where Cowboy Bill Watts was the booker, and in the later years of his career, he was still wrestling part-time and the big shows and things of that nature. Shoot a big major angle, followed up, and because we're running towns every night, so there's always somewhere to go work, and it's new and fresh. But Cowboy was just he had a knack for getting inside the head of his top people. In other words, he would get the talents to suggest creative in hopes that they would buy into it and make it their own, take ownership. And when people take ownership of a project, no matter what it is in wrestling or whatever it may be, if you take ownership of a project, you're a hell of a lot more likely to make it successful than not. So Cowboy taught me that early on. He'd bring heels in. I remember him bringing in Angelo Mosca at one point early on, and Mosca had ideas, and Cowboy used them, and it made Mosca happy. It made the match quality better, and it was a good thing. So I think the same situation here applies here. Getting Rock's booking expertise and his instincts on display there's just nothing wrong with it. At least in my opinion, that's all.
I am excited to see what they do in both night 1 and night 2. I wanted to get your take on, I guess there's been a little bit of a discussion online over the last week or so about a quote unquote double standard, maybe because The Rock can be a little more colorful with his language. He's not just staying in the lanes of the PC world, and it's a little more real and a little more authentic and a little more adult. And apparently there's been some reports that some folks in WWE think that that's not fair, that there's a double standard. But I often think about Jimmy Johnson, the former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, who said something along the lines of production has its privileges. And if you're going to make an exception for anybody, it's got to be The Rock. I mean, who's going to tell The Rock what he can or can't do? Right, Jim?
It's a no-brainer,
yeah.
Conrad. It's funny that we're even discussing it. I understand why we're discussing it. I'm glad that we are, but golly, man, it's The Rock.
Right?
Yeah. It's like getting Babe Ruth to be a designated hitter, or my favorite growing up, Mickey Mantle, the great switch hitter from Commerce, Oklahoma, New York Yankee, all that good stuff. So yeah, I don't see I think it's much to do about not enough, but here's the thing. The good news is this whole scenario has got people talking.
Yes.
And they're discussing it, and they're it's radio fodder and things that people like Busted Open, Dave LaGreca and his group, they've done a good job of providing info on that scenario. I just think it's a win. I think we're going to see that at the box office.
I don't think there's any doubt of that. And let me tell you something else that's a win. Getting a good night's sleep, and I'm sleeping better than ever thanks to our friends at 8 Sleep. Today's episode is brought to you by 8 Sleep, and it has been an absolute game changer in my life. Let me explain. 8 Sleep's pod cover is redefining sleep by leveraging data and technology to improve health in a way that really no other company is doing. And I have been blown away by this. Let me explain. This is like a mattress topper. It fits over your bed like a fitted sheet. It'll fit on any bed, but it allows you and your spouse to sleep at different temperatures. You can go as low as 55 degrees. You can go as high as 110 degrees. But what's really cool about 8 Sleep is it automatically adjusts your bed's temperature based on your individual needs. And I think we all know that we sleep better when it's cooler. So I want to get into a cool bed, and then it wants to warm me up to wake me up. It even has an alarm. But what's really fun, and the wife and I have started to do this, is we're sort of competing to see who can get better sleep. I'm not making this up, and I'll actually post this to social media. She and I both got a 91 the other day. The same night, we both got a 91. Now, we went to bed at different times. We woke up at different times, but our quality of sleep was the same. And it's because I have my perfect setting on my side of the bed. She has her perfect setting on her side of the bed. We're well rested. We're more productive. We don't feel run down. We don't feel like we need a nap. This has been an absolute game changer for me. But the idea that it's not just cooling me down, but it's giving me the data to understand how much REM sleep am I getting? How much deep sleep am I getting? All right, I know I'm laying there, but is this quality sleep or is it junk sleep? This is great stuff. It also tracks your health metrics. You're going to see what your heart rate is, what your breath rate is. And once you can monitor that stuff, man, you're going to get addicted to it. I am. I find myself wanting to get better and better numbers. Earlier this week, I got 100, but every morning, I'm not kidding, for the last 30 days, no, 90 days. Where am I at? We're almost in April. Since the beginning of the year, my wife and I have compared scores. Every night we're at home, we send each other a text the next morning. I got a so-and-so. I got a so-and-so. We're improving our sleep, and it's all because of 8 Sleep. It's the easiest way to improve your sleep. Pick up one of these 8 Sleep's pod covers. Start the new year right like I did, and invest in the rest that you deserve with 8 Sleep. You're going to absolutely love it. I can't recommend this enough. Go right now to 8sleep.com/JR. You'll get $200 off plus free shipping on the pod cover by 8 Sleep. Spell out the word H, y'all. That's EIGHTSLEEP.com/JR, 8sleep.com/JR. You'll get $200 off and free shipping. Jim, as long as I've known you, you've been a big advocate. There's nothing more important than a good night's sleep, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I got sleep apnea. When I did my sleep test, I stopped breathing 66 times in an hour.
Oh my.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm on the mask and look like Top Gun. I used to kid Jan about that. You're sleeping with Top Gun.
I love that.
Yeah, she was the best. I don't know where it was, but nonetheless, sleep apnea makes you change your thoughts on sleeping.
Yes.
Obviously, duh. So I covet and value a good night's sleep. It's just so important. And I know that since my schedule has been adjusted, and I'm not on the road every week, my sleep patterns have solidified. There's some continuity there because I'm in my bed here right now in Florida. But my bed here or my bed in Oklahoma, I'm good. It's just it's important as hell, folks. This is an easy, foolproof way to improve your sleep. And you give it a try and you'll see exactly what we're talking about.
Try it right now. 8sleep.com/JR. You'll get $200 off and free shipping. You're going to love the pod cover. So listen, Jim, we're talking about The Rock. And as we head into 1998, The Rock is in the middle of his biggest push up to this point. He's in his second reign as the Intercontinental Champion. Of course, the first one was as Rocky Maivia. And well, fans didn't really love that. There were some
Die, Rocky, die.
Yeah, it was a little rough, man. And now here we are with his second run, but he's a heel. And Steve Austin literally hands him the belt and forfeits the belt to The Rock and then hits him with a stunner. So The Rock is a new heel working with what is quickly becoming our hottest baby face, even if he's not yet the world champion. How did you think Rock was progressing? Because with the benefit of hindsight, man, when it went poorly with him as a baby face up front, this thing could have came off the tracks pretty easily. We've seen that happen dozens, maybe hundreds of times, but The Rock, that was not in the cards for him. He was different. He was a cut above. No.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. Nobody ever came near, giving up on The Rock. We never did. I mean, we all knew it. This is a layup. This is easy. Once we just find the right spot for him and surround him with the right people. And I thought we did a good job of that, putting him in the in the Nation of Domination. I don't know how happy he was in the beginning of his Nation of Domination run. It was kind of stereotypical, stereotyped the guy a little bit. This is all, we're showing this on YouTube. He notices no tattoos with that one Brahma bull.
Right.
That's back in the day. So, but nobody ever, he was never in danger of people getting frustrated and giving up on him. He was just he saw what was there. He was the number 1 draft pick. He was the guy. It's just going to take some time and to learn the nuances. And because he came from a pro wrestling family, the nuances were second nature to Dwayne. He had grown up around them. He was used to dialogue and within that world. So he kept maturing. I'll say this, Conrad, I was pleasantly surprised every week to see Rock manipulate the backstage area to fit in, to take advice from the older guys and be willing to listen. So I was always impressed with that. I mean, physically, my God, he's 6'5", 270, athletic as hell. But he started picking up all the nuances and putting all those pieces together to make a nice picture, a puzzle. And so I was always a big fan of his since I recruited him and signed him. You know, that story I told about going to this place down there, his home in South Florida, to recruit him because he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. Hell, he had a college degree. He could do a lot of things. But I didn't know how intent he was on becoming a pro wrestler. Very intent, as we found out. We're at this little place having lunch. It was so significant in my career of 50 years. I remember what I ordered to this very day. Grilled chicken, yellow rice, and black beans. That's exactly what Dwayne ordered. So it's one of those lines. I'll have what he's having.
Yes.
So I love being around him because he was a sponge for information. He probably asked me more questions, especially about his pay, than anybody that I ever managed. He wanted to know. He had a insatiable desire for knowledge, information. And a lot of guys come do their thing physically. They look good and they go to the gym, they get their tans, they douse their hair in water, blah, blah, blah. And they call it a day. Not Rock. He just getting started. So he was a can't miss guy. The only thing that's going to happen is something in his personal life that was unforeseen or injury. And as far as my role is concerned, you can't control either of those. Injuries happen and all these things. So I love working with him. He was so refreshing, and he was so hungry for knowledge. Stay hungry for knowledge, everybody. Whatever you do for a living or whatever, stay hungry for the knowledge. It's power. I know it's cliche as hell, but it really truly is. Knowledge is power.
Well, we have the knowledge of knowing that his first feud as Intercontinental Champion is going to be with Ken Shamrock, and they hook it up at the Royal Rumble. And Meltzer would even comment, because this one happened out on the West Coast. And he said something like, I can actually recall when I was a junior in high school, seeing Dwayne Johnson run around backstage every Wednesday night at the San Jose Civic Auditorium with his mom and sometimes his grandmother. I mean, this is a guy who grew up in the business and is still a student of the game, as you laid out, when he's actually in it, going to the vets and picking their brains and asking questions. And make no mistake, Ken Shamrock was a big time opponent. Yeah. He had credibility. He was believable. I thought he would have been a perfect opponent for Stone Cold when he got hot. As you've explained before, maybe there was some reliability problems there, but he was so hot here, man, that's a great vote of confidence for a relatively new guy like The Rock. I mean, let's not forget, The Rock started wrestling with WWE in November of 96. So in January of 98, you got a young Ken Shamrock and a young Rock, and it still worked, man.
It was not a bad problem for a guy in my role to have.
Right.
It was, they had great, pardon me. They had great chemistry. They were on the same page. They're both hungry, athletic, physical. They checked all the applicable boxes. And so it was a good send off to start Rock's journey. I thought, I just thought those guys, they had some really good matches. They had some short matches that were good. They had some longer matches that were good. But you believed in what you were seeing. And I think that's all important. My question to you, Conrad, is what the hell was Meltzer doing backstage his junior year in high school in San Jose?
It's a great question. I have no idea. What I do know though, is that the actual Rumble match that year so think about this now. He has the Intercontinental title match with Ken Shamrock. He retains, referees are involved. It's crazy chaos, meaning the story continues. But the real story is that The Rock is in the actual Royal Rumble match. He draws an early number, but he hangs on till the very end, and it comes down to just he and Stone Cold. Now remember, this is Royal Rumble 1998. This is like a year before their world title feud. Yes, they're fresh off an Intercontinental title feud, but now we know Stone Cold, he's getting ready to go to the main event of WrestleMania. That's not quite in the cards for The Rock, but you got to know when it comes down to those last 3 or 4 talent in a ring, certainly the last 2 at a Royal Rumble, there's big plans for everyone in the ring. That's pretty cool to know that long before we saw them battling for the world title, they're still the last 2 in the Rumble, even in 98. That's pretty neat.
Austin always had an eye out for the other talents as potential opponents. And he, you look at The Rock from head to toe with his physique and his mannerisms and his ability to talk, et cetera, and it really becomes that no brainer. And Steve paid attention. He knew at some point in time, the day will come when he and Rock will begin some sort of little journey together. It wasn't a little journey because they headlined in one-on-one matches 3 WrestleManias. 3. That's unheard of in today's world. But they were so good and their chemistry was so flawless. I think they headlined WrestleMania 15, 17, and 19. And I remember them very well. I called all 3 of them, and it was a great honor to see the greatness in front of me. That includes Austin and Rock. So it was good stuff, man. It was good stuff. And I was sure lucky and glad that I was doing my trade in that period of time.
I love what all you have going on with The Rock here creatively. I mean, he's in this feud with Ken Shamrock. He's also still got this lingering beef with Stone Cold. But the real story is the dissension inside the Nation of Domination. It's around this time where we got that famous gif of The Rock sort of rolling his eyes as Farouk is talking. And he starts referring to himself as The Rock. And there's this debate about who the leader is. And Rock is trying to scoot himself to the front of the camera shot and stand in front of the other guys, almost taking Farouk's spot. Man, the layers of storytelling here, this is really, really well done. Do you think, I mean, this is before, as far as I remember, this is before Russo winds up leaving. Did the creative team at this point look mostly like Russo and Cornette and Bruce and Vince to come up with this sort of stuff?
Well, more or less, yeah, yeah, more or less. I look, you put a group together for them to break up,
Yes.
so that somebody in the breakup becomes a bigger star.
Yes.
It's the same concept. It's been that way forever. It's that way today. You put a faction together so that somewhere at the appropriate time, that faction can break up with violence and controversy. And so we knew that at some point in time that Dwayne would be on his own sooner than later. But this was just a vehicle. The Nation of Domination was a vehicle to get Rock to the next place, next spot, the next stop in his journey.
You know, it's funny you say that because I guess I've never really played that tape all the way through. It explains why you've got 50 years in the wrestling business, jrbook50.com, little cheap plug. But I never really thought about that until those words just fell out of your mouth. You put a faction together so you can break them up.
Right.
Duh. I mean, here I am. Whenever I would fantasy book a faction in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we need a top guy and we need a middle of the card guy and we need a tag team. No. You need somebody who can have great matches and tell a great story when they're adversaries. And that makes total sense to me. And
Right.
You guys played that out with Farouk. There was a great moment on a Raw in Dallas, Texas. The Rock would give Farouk a wrapped life-size poster of Rocky holding the Intercontinental title. I thought this was fantastic television. Farouk, of course, throws it away. It becomes a whole thing where Farouk gets distracted and winds up losing the match to Steve Blackman. Farouk tears up the poster and the heat is boiling over. I mean, he's still very young in his career, but The Rock's charisma is just all over the place. And that little segment, as silly as it is, the gifting of a poster and the dissension in the ranks, man, it just continues to tell that story. And The Rock just keeps getting better and better and more comfortable in these sort of skits. It's not just in-ring action. It's not a backstage promo. It's performing in the ring, but maybe not just quote unquote matches. That's another box for The Rock to check here. No?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. He just kept getting better. And those nuances are what I was talking about earlier. He studied them. He asked questions about them. Pat Patterson was a great confidant for Rock. Pat worked all those years in the territory and for Roy Shire out of San Francisco. And a lot of the time in the territory days, High Chief Peter Maivia would wrestle extended lengths of time in that territory, which is what precipitated Pat and Peter Maivia becoming great friends. And of course, then if you're friends with the High Chief, you somewhere down the road, you get to meet the grandson who's always around.
Right.
So it was kind of cool in that respect, I think. But anyway, it just worked out good. Everything started fitting, Conrad. And boy, as a booker person, when that starts happening, you just feel a lot better about things because it lets you know that I think we're going the right direction. Of course, with Rock, as I said earlier, not to dispute what I mentioned already, when nobody ever gave up hope.
No.
We all believed he was going to be a huge star. It's just a matter of time. And that's easy to say if you're not the guy you're speaking of, the subject matter. If you're that guy, then you get impatient. But Rock he was hungry. He was very hungry, and he knew he was going to be great. But none of us knew exactly how great he was going to become, as evidenced today.
Well, what else was great was the go home Raw before WrestleMania 14. WrestleMania 14, of course, is where Stone Cold's going to become the man. He beats Shawn Michaels and becomes the world heavyweight champion for the very first time. But what's more important to me with regard to the Rock story is 6 days prior to that, there's the go home Raw before WrestleMania. And the main event of that Monday Night Raw, just 6 days before WrestleMania, is The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. In the main event, 6 days before Austin wins the world title. and it's going head to head with Randy Savage and Roddy Piper on the other channel on Nitro. Those are two legendary performers, bona fide Hall of Famers. And you've got two guys who are out to prove something, and they do. Believe it or not, Rock and Austin beat Savage and Piper in the ratings. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, you say, well, of course, but this is before either guy has won the world title. Now, I want to be clear too. Raw didn't win the night, but that segment, Rock and Austin, when people had to make a choice and they could vote with their remote, do you want to see Piper and Savage or do you want to see Austin and Rock? They changed the channel to come watch the WWE. Man, what a vote of confidence that had to be in The Rock. First of all, to be in the main event right before WrestleMania. But then when that rating comes in, it had to remove all doubt that you guys were headed in the right direction, like you were saying, right?
Oh yeah. Gosh, yeah. It was just it just wasn't even wasn't even a consideration.
Right.
It was just no, here it is. Here's what you guys got. Don't screw it up. And that was what we tried not to do, to screw it up. And luckily for us, as evidenced by those three WrestleMania main events, 15, 17, and 19, we were right. We were right on that one. Thank goodness.
WrestleMania itself was Rock working again with Ken Shamrock, and he is throwing some brutal chair shots on Shamrock here, including some hard, unprotected chair shots to the face. But somehow, some way, Shamrock, who we thought was going to win because Maivia is tapping out, the referee reverses the decision because Shamrock won't release the hold. And he's throwing down referees and suplexing referees and pushing down WWE officials. Rock's bleeding from the mouth and tapping, and Farouk just comes out and watches. Again, we're heavy on story, but once again, Shamrock and Rock delivered, and this was big on story. Also, in that same WrestleMania, to show the Rock's acting chops, I suppose, he interviews Jennifer Flowers, who, if you're not familiar with American politics, I guess had a dalliance with our former president, Bill Clinton, once upon a time. But man, you're using The Rock in every possible way here. I mean, think about what a week that guy had. So young in the business. I'm going to main event Raw against the guy who's about to win the world title, and we're going to beat Nitro in that segment. And then I'm going to get in there and skit with, I guess, Clinton's mistress. And then we're going to tell one hell of a story in a hot angle for the Intercontinental title. Had to be Rock's biggest week in the business at that point.
Yeah, he was playing both ways. You know, he was a talker, personality, and a wrestler. And he was beginning to master every aspect of those parts of his game. So this son of a bitch never had a bad day. You know, he was just so consistent, so smart. And like I said, when you put he and a guy like Patterson together, and not to say that Bruce didn't help and Vince, obviously, but Patterson was the thrust of this thing. Patterson had that personal investment in Dwayne, Dewey, as Pat called him. And, it just was Rock was lucky in the sense that he had Patterson there to help him out. Because Patterson's such a great finish guy, great nuance guy. Tweak this, take that out. You don't need this. Add one more of those, whatever. And but Patterson was like a guardian angel to The Rock. And boy, you couldn't get a better pro wrestling angel than Pat Patterson.
I can't help but compare the way The Rock started at WrestleMania and the way he looked just a year later. I mean, you can't tell the story of The Rock without talking about this kind of perseverance. I want to remind everybody, after that awesome week we just broke down in 1998, a year prior to that, he was working the Sultan at WrestleMania 13. That's a lot different than what we're doing here. And the night after WrestleMania 14 is where we see The Rock start taking over as the leader of the nation. That leads to an Unforgiven match with unlikely tag team partners, Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman, taking on Rock, D'Lo, and Mark Henry of the Nation. The baby faces get the win, and Farouk gets the pin on Rock to set up over the edge. But at the show, Rock is pile driven on a chair by Farouk before the match, except the chair moved. So it's just like a regular pile driver, but the Rock will still stretch it off like it was a serious injury. As an announcer, how difficult is that when you know the original plan was we're going to do a stretcher job for Rock? He's supposed to take it on the chair. Yeah. Chair's not there, but for whatever reason, we don't do it again. They just play it off and keep going. Do you just try to put your blinders on and call what's on the monitor and move on to the next thing?
That's it. I describe what we're seeing.
Yes.
And what I think it means. I knew in general terms there was going to be a stretcher job, but how it was going to be achieved, et cetera, et cetera, I didn't know. But it was just all in that growth of the Rock, the journey, and it was inevitable. He and Farouk had to have a fight, and they did.
Well, and what's cool is when this chair moves, they cover it up. I thought at first, man, this does not look good, but whoever's helping with the writing, whether it's Bruce or it's Vince or whoever it is, Sergeant Slaughter, who was the commissioner at the time for the WWF, he doesn't believe that the Rock's really hurt, and Rock's going to come out with a neck brace. And this becomes a whole storyline. Now we know he didn't take the pile driver on the chair. It was just a quote unquote regular pile driver, but he comes out with the neck brace and he still beats Farouk in 5 minutes. I love that we at least tried to address it and tried to cover it up. And it gave the Rock another chance to show some of those acting chops, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It just kept feeding him material that he could carry with him and make better. That's the thing about a great star, is that they take what the booking or creative committee presents them and they make it better. And Sarge, Sarge did a great job in his role. I love Sarge. He's a credit to the wrestling business. Still is to this very day. But, I thought Rock, if you look at it from a critical eye, maybe he oversold the neck brace a little bit, and it made us suspicious that he's not really hurt. So, but it was an interesting little storyline, nice little element to the story, I thought.
Well, what was interesting to me is, the way we're sort of just moving on from Farouk, and I know that at the end of this match, that's when we really get started with DX coming out to make the save, because they still hate, I guess, the newest member of the Nation, which at this point, believe it or not, is Owen Hart. So they're going to have a really big feud, and that's really going to chart the course for the Rock for the rest of 98. Nation of Domination led by the Rock against DX, and certainly later, as we'll get there, Triple H and the Rock in singles competition. But before we move on from Farouk, I got to ask, did Farouk feel a certain type of way? Like the Nation was put together for him. So the real life Ron Simmons.
Well, was it really? Was it really? I don't know if that's factual, Conrad. I can see you saying that. But the Nation of Domination was put together to implode, and the Rock come out on the other side, whether he'd be a babyface or a heel.
Well, he wasn't in the original plans for the Nation, though. I mean, this started in November of 96 before he would have he's debuting as a babyface at that point. I'm just wondering, right. People are always worried about, especially before guaranteed contracts, my spot, brother. Was Ron Simmons concerned that, hey man, if he's the new leader, what am I doing? Where does that leave for me? Right.
I think that's a logical question.
Yeah.
I think that's a logical question. And I'm sure it crossed Farouk, Ron Simmons' mind, because he was a little older and he'd been around a while, and the Nation thing had maybe run its course. It certainly was getting toward the end. So, but I always looked at the Nation as it was a good thing for Ron in the beginning, and then adding the Rock to it just changed the whole dynamic. And I think for the better. How do you add Rock to a faction and the faction not be better?
Well, what I like is, we didn't have a bust in the Rock, and I know this is before guaranteed contracts, but we've seen a lot of NFL teams and baseball teams and basketball teams when they go out and they recruit a big blue chipper, I don't mean to pick on him, but like years ago, we all remember Ryan Leaf, man. He comes in with all this hype, all this press, all this prestige, and then it doesn't really work out. Well, teams have millions to spend. And when it comes to a great shave, you don't have to shell out tons of cash. Harry's saw customers getting ripped off by the shaving industry with overpriced, underperforming products, and they decided to do something better. They found their own way to make beautifully designed razors for a fraction of the price of other big brands. So you never have to wonder if you overpaid. And I've told this story before, but it bears repeating. A guy I work with named John, we brought up shaving in the office one day because he happens to be a follically challenged gentleman. And another guy in the office asked, "Hey man, how do you shave your head?" And John did not hesitate. And he said, "I'm a Harry's man." He loves Harry's, and I think you will too. He doesn't just use it on his head. He uses it for his facial hair, but they've got a lot of other great products too. Seriously, like whatever you're looking for, you need some body wash, they got it. And they got it in great guy scents like redwoods and wildlands and stone. Plus they've got extra strength, high quality, amazing deodorant for just $5. They've got all your hair and grooming products to help you get that unique look. But what brought them to the dance, as JR would say, is the unbeatable value they have with their razors. We're talking German engineered blades that are made in their factory that stay sharp longer. They even have customizable delivery options where you can get refills as low as $2. Man, that's like half of what you pay for the other big brands. So get a 5-blade razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/JR. That's harrys.com/JR. What you'll find is they have the highest customer satisfaction in the shaving industry. They also have a no risk trial. If you don't like your shave, no worries. It's on them. And how about this convenient subscription option? I want to mention you can cancel at any time. Getting the best doesn't mean spending the most when you shave with Harry's. Let's get started with a $13 trial for just $3. That's right, $3 at harrys.com/JR. That's HARRYS.com/JR for a $3 trial set. Jim, $3. That's couch cushion money. Why not try it?
That's a lot. That's a great savings. I have been a Harry's customer and user for years, and I could always tell when I had a Harry's blade in my hand because my shave was so much better and didn't pull and pinch and all that stuff. So Harry, it's a great company, and they're so consistent. I never had a bad purchase from them. And by the way, that shaving cream is really good, really good. Obviously, the blades are the main event, but the shaving cream is a nice partner, tag team partner, if you will. So give it a shot, folks. $3? You kidding me? $3. Can't beat it.
harrys.com/JR. Let's get back to 1998, man. King of the Ring 98 is coming up. So of course The Rock is in the tournament. He's going to defeat Vader and then Triple H to make it onto the pay-per-view in the semifinals. And that's where we've got Dan Severn. And I think a lot of Dan, but him and The Rock just feels like a styles clash.
It was.
Rock gets the win, and then he faces his old foe in the main event, Ken Shamrock. Man, this Shamrock feud is one of the
legs.
Yeah,
got legs, Conrad.
Woo.
You know, it's got people want to see some more of it, so it was good. I like I said earlier, they fit each other. They fit each other's mentality and their skill set. Just tremendous. So, Severn was a stopgap. It got Rock to Shamrock, and then here they go again. And they just had that match down. I mean, they didn't really have. Maybe you could think about something. I can't think of any Shamrock Rock match that was horrible or not good. They're always solid as hell.
Natural chemistry. Yeah.
There's ankle lock by Shamrock. It's funny how the submission guys can use a hold like that. It's so effective and it's safe. That's something that more wrestlers should think about nowadays, is doing things that are somewhat safe. We talked about Dynamite last night. There was risk taken in that on that show. These guys, I don't know what it is about live television, whether it be Dynamite or Collision or certainly the pay-per-views. The talent just seemed to turn out. I mean, everybody wanted to outdo the other guy, which is great competition. So we got a very healthy AEW does, a very healthy locker room, but it's a very competitive locker room. Everybody wants a better spot. And the way you get a better spot is you go out and you perform. That's how I look at it. So I was trying to think of one match last night that I really, I thought Okada and Eddie Kingston, right?
Yep.
You know, I really liked that match. It overachieved in my estimation. It was physical. Eddie Kingston's evolved into one of the most reliable stars on AEW or in AEW. And certainly Okada's a proven commodity as well. People are just getting to know him, but he's silky smooth. You know, he's a top 5 guy in the world, at least in my opinion. Then you had Ospreay, who's got an entirely different style. That Ospreay match at Dynasty with Bryan Danielson is something to be coveted and not to be missed. I hope I don't miss it.
I can't wait to see it. And I got to talk about the next piece of the Rock story here, because boy, it has been discussed forever. The DX parody of the nation. It's taking place to build for the next pay-per-view, Fully Loaded. Looking back, of course, there were some decisions made for this skit that we would never do today, but these were pivotal moments because this is a taped Raw head to head against a Nitro where Goldberg is beating Hulk Hogan for the world title. And this is still competitive. So it's at least compelling. People are interested. People are tuning in. Would we do it over again today? Absolutely not. But how quickly, from your perspective, could you see, boy, The Rock and Triple H, they're going to be great adversaries here.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting because that's we got another one. We got another gimme. You know, we got another one that's a no-brainer. Triple H and Rock, 2 smart guys. They knew what the hell they were doing. A lot of the times they booked their own stuff. They invested in their own stuff. So it's almost like you want to, you know, me sitting in my office saying, well, I don't have a problem with this. I was just going to sell tickets and draw money. So, but it's like, wow, here we go again. We got something else that people want to see. And we got 2 talents that want to work with each other. So it worked out good, man. They had some classics.
Well, and one of those classics winds up being the longest match in Rock or Triple H's career up to that point. It happened at Fully Loaded. It's a 2 out of 3 falls match. And when I think about a 2 out of 3 falls match on a pay-per-view and a really long match on a pay-per-view, especially in this era, that feels like a Pat Patterson special. Would I be close?
Yeah, absolutely. Pat's fingerprints were all over that match because back in the territory days where you had, you know, 14, 16 guys in a territory in total, 2 out of 3 fall matches were not uncommon because they provided content. So instead of adding more guys to the card and raising your payroll, you could do it with a 2 out of 3 fall match, for example, and give the fans plenty of opportunity to see the top stars. And so a 2 out of 3 fall match was, I know, a Mid-South back in the day. Cowboy didn't like them a lot, but we had plenty of them because it seemed like on some talents it just worked better. Some talents needed more in-ring time to tell their story. It wasn't about high spots and a variety of Hispanic maneuvers with a unique name. It wasn't that. It was just wrestling. And that's how I always looked at it. It's wrestling. You have holds, you have counters, you have reversals, you know, all that stuff, momentum, all these things have a role in that stuff. So I was eagerly anticipating when Triple H and Rock would finally go at it because it was going to be something special.
We go in this 2 out of 3 falls match to a draw. It's a 30-minute time limit draw. We're tied at 1 apiece, and that sets up a ladder match the following month at SummerSlam. Now, this is a long time ago. This is 1998. This is before Edge and Christian and the Hardys and the Dudleys just changed the way we look at ladder matches forever. So at this point, the high watermark for a ladder match, people still would talk about WrestleMania 10, 1994, 4 years prior, what Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels did. And respectfully, I don't think the guys felt like they could top that one. So they went with a different type of ladder match, much more physical. And if you compare the two, they're not even close. But Meltzer dug it. Here's what he wrote in the Observer. The push of younger wrestlers was evident, with the ladder match being used as an attempt to catapult both Triple H and Rocky Maivia up yet another rung on the real life ladder to greatness. Despite Triple H going in with a legit knee injury and the obvious comparison with the two Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon pay-per-view matches they couldn't live up to, and that it's unfair to compare anything with, the two put on a very dramatic, excellent ladder match, which appeared to accomplish its goals. And from most accounts, Maivia came out of the event as the big star of the show. I want to take a time out right here because this is SummerSlam 98, a real high watermark for the company. I believe this was the biggest SummerSlam, or maybe even the biggest non-WrestleMania pay-per-view in history. It had the Highway to Hell theme with Stone Cold Steve Austin, hotter than chicken grease, taking on The Undertaker. And it was a really special show in Madison Square Garden. But I did feel like there was a decision made that day. Whoever came out of that match with Rock and Triple H as the bigger star, they were going to be the next guy. Did you feel that way at the time, or is that something we romanticize with the benefit of hindsight?
Well, during that period of time, I'm not so sure that Austin was still the guy.
Oh, Austin's, for sure he was. I just meant the next in line for Austin.
Okay. And that's a good question. I would tell you, Conrad, without being a wise ass, that was going to be Austin's decision.
Okay.
He had already made his decision.
Got
it. Was Steve looking forward to working with Triple H? Absolutely. But not until his unfinished business with Rock had been addressed. Steve saw money in that program, and he saw matches that were safe, physical, told basic stories, and he wasn't going to let that opportunity scatter away. None of us, I didn't certainly believe or think of a three match saga trilogy. I didn't think of that, but they kept making it better, and those two guys kept wanting to work together. And I don't know about you guys out there watching and listening, but damn, it don't take, you ain't got to talk long to talk me into more Rock and Austin.
No, you do not. Well said.
So that's how I looked at that thing, Connie.
It's crazy to think though, the ask that we had of Rock and Hunter that night. Hey guys, we want you to go out and do a ladder match in the same building in front of the same fans who saw one of the most iconic ladder matches of all time. And they had to be different than. And The Rock, man, he gained some fans that night. There's no doubt. And when we get to Breakdown, which is the September 98 pay-per-view, it's going to be a triple threat cage match with The Rock taking on Ken Shamrock and Mankind. It seems like everybody's kind of a babyface at this point. Mankind's going to do his crazy elbow drop attempt on Rock from the top of the cage. Everything Rock does is getting amazing pops from the crowd, especially the people's elbow. You and I haven't spent a lot of time talking about that. From what I understand, the story on the people's elbow is Rock tried it, just having fun and trying to entertain the other guys at a house show. So he's popping the boys at a house show with this silly thing, but it got over. Maybe people dared him to do it more and more. Eventually he does it on TV, and boy, fans just ate it up. But I could see how if you were a traditionalist or if you were old school, you might not like it. You might hate it. You might say, oh, this is hokey. It's cheesy. It's whatever. But what it was box office. What did you think the first time you saw it? And did your opinion change?
I waited until I heard the crowd.
Okay.
I let the crowd make that decision. If they're buying it, I'll sell it. If they were, crickets, no noise, I'd just move on. So that's how you always let it. Audio has so much to do with your commentary, what you hear, how you react to what you hear, et cetera, et cetera. So, you just lay back and wait. I didn't know about the people's elbow till I saw it.
Right.
And, but it worked. I mean, just listen, it worked. And the more he did it, the more it got over. And that's that's a good thing, because the audience generally, and back in that day and now too, have don't have enough patience, shall we say. And so I was just not going to be impatient. I was going to wait and see what the audience did, and then try to make it bigger and better.
It was going to be bigger and better. We know The Rock's going to get the win. He's going to pin Ken Shamrock. He moves on to Judgment Day, where he's going to take on Mark Henry. Of course, that's a carryover from the old Nation storyline. And Henry pins him clean in 5 minutes. I, of course, would not have had that on my bingo card, but hey, listen, we're telling stories. But
see how it happened. See how it happened there.
Oh yeah, a little help from D'Lo Brown. I mean, the Nation's getting their comeuppance on The Rock here.
Rock had an out.
Yes,
and we as storytellers, we had an out. To be honest with you, hey, I just speaking of Mark Henry, his son just signed a letter of intent to go to OU to wrestle.
Oh, that's awesome! I didn't see that. That's great.
Yeah, Oklahoma University. He's going to wrestle. He might even go out for football. I haven't heard definitively that answer, but one of those preferred walk-on things is football. But he'll be the starting heavyweight wrestler there, hopefully for the foreseeable future, starting this fall.
I can't wait to see him, man. What a talented family, the Henrys, and what a good guy. If you ever get a chance to meet Mark Henry at a meet and greet or a convention or anything like that, go out of your way. I mean, you said earlier, what a great testament to the business that Sergeant Slaughter is. I'm going to say that for Mark Henry. Like you won't meet a nicer, more personable guy than Mark Henry.
Mark was raised right.
Yes, sir.
He's got good values. And we like the same food in great volume. So, no, I'm proud of good. Chick is a good kid. He's smart. God dang, their mom was an Ivy League graduate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I don't know how Mark did it. He overachieved big time. Got lucky a little bit too. So, but I'm happy for him. He's building a nice career as a broadcaster. And I even saw where he was doing some stand-up comedy. And I thought that was interesting, because he's a funny guy.
Oh yeah, he is.
Just to dress those stories up and have at it. So, but he's quite the entrepreneur. I always thought that Mark Henry was probably one of the more overlooked from Hollywood guys that we ever had. His look you can't replace it. Can't replace it. You can't substitute for it. He's one of a kind. It's just finding the right role for that one of a kind guy.
Well, we know the right role for The Rock at Survivor Series 98 is, and we've covered this in long form. Check it out in the archives, grillingjr.com. That's grillingjr.com. I really want you to go out of your way to watch that show back. We have covered it before, but man, it's such a fantastic thread that carries all the way through. The Rock winds up winning against the Big Boss Man, against Ken Shamrock, against The Undertaker and Mankind, and he turns heel and becomes the corporate champion. This is a tournament to crown a new champion. Everyone sort of assumed that it was going to be Mankind because he had been gifted the hardcore title. He was sucking up to Vince. The Rock was the people's champ. He's doing the people's elbow, and damn it, he turns again. But The Rock is the world champ at Survivor Series on the 2-year anniversary of making his debut. I mean, this is really rare air. First of all, how many people get to be WWE champion? And then how many can say they did it within the first 2 years of being on the roster? And that includes an injury absence and so much more. This is unprecedented, The Rock's success at this point. No?
Yeah. No, of course. He just, he didn't know, he didn't understand failure. It was unacceptable. And so he made that heel turn work. And let's not forget, there's a picture there that old Bull Ramus showed on with McMahon's and Rock. So let's not forget them.
Right.
You had two heels that were hotter than hell that were endorsing The Rock. And seemingly The Rock was lowered his character, his expectations. You know. So anyway, it was that was a nice package. Is what I'm trying to say. The McMahon's blended in well with The Rock, and The Rock took advantage of that rub, without a doubt.
Well, what's interesting too is it feels like you had a really hot baby face, and you could have had, I mean, Rock at that point was clearly your number 2 baby face behind Austin, but you could have just kept him right there. But instead you see more money in switching him to heel. And rather than being maybe the number 2 baby, let's make him the number 1 heel for Stone Cold.
Simple thinking.
It works out, man. WrestleMania.
That's exactly how I looked at it. That's exactly how when I talked to Patterson and to Vince, that's what I see, because I'm booking the house shows.
Right.
I'm booking the live events. I know where the disparity is in the balance between the babyface side of the roster and the heel side of the roster. So we got this magnificent once in a generation performer who we can utilize any way we want because he's still young and he's still evolving. Let's do that. Like you said, Conrad, very well put. I'd rather him be the number 1 heel as the number 2 babyface.
Yes.
And we accomplished that.
Man, let's just recap where we are so far. We start in 1998 with him as the Intercontinental Champion, having been handed the title by Stone Cold Steve Austin. He gets in this incredible feud with Ken Shamrock. He's going to be feuding with Farouk about who is the leader of the Nation of Domination. Then we've got this incredible DX versus the Nation thing. Then Triple H versus The Rock. Somehow The Rock becomes a fan favorite. The People's Elbow becomes a thing. Now he wins the world title and screws Mick Foley. So Mick Foley is going to be his next feud. What an incredible 1998. And we're still not done. We've got the Capital Carnage pay-per-view, and we've also got the Rock Bottom pay-per-view to close the year out. That's going to be The Rock's first title defense on pay-per-view. It's going to happen against Mankind. The finish is rather unique. Mankind puts Sacco on Rock. Tim White signals for the bell, but the announcement is from Mr. McMahon that since Rock wasn't pinned and didn't submit, he can retain his title, and Vince gets Sacco for his trouble. But still, we've got a great foil, if you will, in Vince McMahon as a supporting cast member for the Rock story. But Foley, who's this underdog, lovable babyface, this might be WWE at their peak storytelling for this era, I think.
Well, we had multiple stars involved in the script, in the ensemble cast. And you always give guys the opportunity to overachieve and to do better than you perceive they might. And everybody rose to the occasion. Everybody was objective. Everybody was positive. So it was some great creative because we had great talents portraying their various roles.
I can't wait for us to break down the rest of the Rock's run. But before we do, we got to take a time out and thank our sponsors at Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions, Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below the waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and watch your confidence bloom like the springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our special offer. Go right now to manscaped.com and use the code Jim Ross and you'll get 20% off plus free shipping. After using Manscaped, I can finally say I have caught the spring fever. Introducing the season's champ, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Their 5th generation trimmer features not one, but 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads. A standard one for taking a little bit off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. It also has dual LED spotlights to guide you through the darkest winter debris. Navigate with confidence in those delicate areas. And maybe if you hate making a mess, let me just tell you, no big deal. It's waterproof. That means you can shave in the shower or in the bath or in the ocean if you want. Hell, I might shave my sack in JR's pool in Oklahoma this summer. I don't know. I love this thing. It's in a compact case. I can take it everywhere I go. Spring cleaning doesn't just apply to the nether regions either. They got the full grooming experience with their signature Beard Hedger Pro Kit, plus the Handyman electric face shaver. If you're a good looking dude who wants to stay good looking and maybe look a little better, Manscaped can help you out. They can help you clean up that neckline and everything below the belt too. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use our code JimRoss at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code JimRoss at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning in your pants.
Absolutely. Hey, that company's amazing.
Yeah, they are.
They make everything they make is good. Everything they make works. I'm a big customer of Manscaped. I believe in them, and they've been a great sponsor for us. So anything you folks can do to help support Manscaped, we wish you would. You won't regret it, and it'll make you feel better, look better, and be better.
I can't wait for you to try it. Manscaped.com. Hook it up. Hey, let's talk about this very special moment in Raw history. Boy, we've talked about it a million times on a million different platforms, but January 4th, 1999, we air a very special episode, a taped Raw that was done in Worcester on December 29th. We see Mankind beat The Rock to become the world champion for the very first time, but that's not the story. The corporation's out there, DX is out there, and when the glass breaks, the damn hard camera starts shaking. It is the loudest pop in WWE history. This is such a special moment in The Rock's story too. I know The Rock has taken a chair shot to the head and he's taken the pin from Mick Foley and losing the world title, but this is head to head with the finger poke of doom. So on the heels of Starrcade, WCW's biggest pay-per-view, they've been hyping up this monster return match for Goldberg and the world title. It winds up being Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash. And that's live. Tony Schiavone's going to sort of say what Eric Bischoff asked him to, sort of mocking Mick Foley winning the world title. And a tape show still beats Nitro. Man, that's got to be a feather in the cap for Austin, for Rock, for Foley, and certainly for McMahon. No?
It was one of those deals where you celebrate for about 24 hours. If
Yeah.
You want to call it a celebration. We didn't have a parade or a potluck dinner, but it was fun to pat ourselves on the back, so to speak, for a nice win. But you just got to do another show, and now less than a week, so you didn't have a lot of time to rejoice. Back to work, and but it was cool. That was a big win over a very strong attraction booked on the TNT.
I just read a report that America is now in more credit card debt than ever before, more than $1.1 trillion. You know, my grandfather used to say, there's no stress like money stress, son. Well, are you feeling that right now? Let me help. You've got a friend in the mortgage business in me, and I've helped families just like yours save hundreds of dollars a month. Seriously, we've helped listeners to this podcast save up to $800 a month. At SaveWithConrad.com, we routinely help our podcast listeners consolidate all of their high interest rate credit cards into just one much lower monthly payment. Would you like to lower your monthly payments? Wouldn't it be nice to skip your next 2 house payments? Are you finally ready for some breathing room and peace of mind? Start saving money today with your friend in the mortgage business, me, at SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. And if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. You see, at SaveWithConrad.com, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. So find out how easy it is to finally get rid of your credit card debt once and for all, get a much lower monthly payment, and even skip your next 2 house payments. Let's find out how much money you can save for free at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 32416, equal housing lender, SaveWithConrad.com. I got to ask, because there's been a little bit of controversy. I know Foley and I have discussed it before on his podcast, Foley is Pod, where allegedly the plan for this 1999 WrestleMania main event was supposed to be a 3-way of Mankind versus The Rock versus Stone Cold. And that kind of makes sense based on the storytelling we've seen so far. But allegedly, according to the rumor and innuendo, Shawn Michaels would argue, hey man, WrestleMania shouldn't have a 3-way main event. WrestleMania is mano y mano. And of course, we know just a handful of years after this, I think it was 5 years after this, the WrestleMania main event did become a 3-way with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 20. But talk to me about the original plan here at WrestleMania 15. Do you remember it being a 3-way? Was that ever discussed?
I don't remember it being a 3-way.
Okay.
And I might be wrong, obviously. It's been a long time ago to retain that information. I have to write down everything I want to get at the grocery store. And sometimes I leave home and forget my list. That's just living in JR's world, which is unique, to say the least. I don't even know where we were, but I don't remember it being a multiple person match in the main event. I think that's a little bit risky. We got that scenario this year with the at WrestleMania. So we'll see how it works out creatively and crowd enjoyment and all those things. No guarantees. No guarantees. So, but I don't think so, Conrad. I think it was always going to be a title match between two guys. At least that's how I recall it.
I know we're going to talk about the WrestleMania match, but before we do, something interesting happens. Rock's incredible run continues. He gets an acting gig on That 70s Show. So I guess this would be his first major acting gig. He's playing his father, Rocky, in season 1 of That 70s Show. There's even a cameo from Ernie Ladd. And this is long before he's the biggest movie star in the world. And this is, I mean, I know he's just won the world title and all that, but he's yet to main event a WrestleMania and he's still establishing himself, but goodness gracious.
Ernie.
Here came Hollywood. What'd you think of Rock doing a little Hollywood? Was Vince supportive of this? Or do you remember there being a circumstance where you guys, the office, didn't want talents doing outside stuff like this?
Not that I know of. That'd be stupid. And I'm sure it probably occurred. Some of the talents may be watching this and say, well, that happened to me. And I'm not saying it didn't or it couldn't, but it wasn't we didn't have enough guys crossing over for it to become an issue. And I think the Hollywood, for lack of just use a general term, saw what we'd seen in Rock: natural charisma,
yes,
an amazing look, very well spoken, intelligent. He could interpret copy and the script. And I love that picture of he and Ernie. Ernie was one of my godfathers in wrestling. Ernie Ladd and I played dominoes in my room in Shreveport every other Tuesday night. And those are some of the greatest days of my life. Even though I beat him regularly, he thought I cheated, but I didn't. I said, Ernie, look around the room. We smoked it up. And here it's just me and you. Now you're 6'9", you wear a size 17 shoe that covers the ground you walk on. And I'm going to cheat you in my room or you can kill me. Come on. So, but anyway, I love to work and telling stories and talking about psychology and how that, whether, I don't know if it's even politically correct to say nowadays, but you know, Ernie had a philosophy on how to manage African-American athletes because he was one and he understood the mindset, the ticking, the head, the whole 9 yards. So, but I learned a lot from Ernie. Ernie was one of my mentors, he and Monsoon. So I had some good ones that taught me a lot. But Rock was just a natural, Connie. I mean, in that role, I know it was a sitcom, 30-minute show. I don't know how it was, how successful it was in the ratings, but it got airplay and it made us rounds and it got Rock exposure.
It not only got him exposure, it showed Hollywood, hey man, this guy can do more than just wrestle. And he eventually became the biggest star in the biz. And, by the way, I want to mention, you started talking a little earlier about what the Henrys are going to do, going to OU and all that. Did you know you can get some OU gear from our friends at shopsportsmerch.com? We've got an affiliate sponsorship now with Fanatics that we've talked about a little bit. But if you're a sports fan like JR and I'll get it out. JR and we'll get it eventually. We want you to check this out. Shopsportsmerch.com is an affiliate partnership with Fanatics, and man, they've got everything: basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, NASCAR, literally every sport under the sun. And it's at shopsportsmerch.com. They've even got really cool new title belts for your favorite baseball team. If you haven't seen it already, hurry over to shopsportsmerch.com. Or if you're watching along with us on YouTube at grillingjr.com, hit the QR code that's up on the screen right now, or just click on the link that's in the description for today's episode. It won't cost you anything. Same great products and service you always expect from Fanatics. But this way, JR gets a little extra cheese on his Whopper, and it doesn't cost you anything. Shopsportsmerch.com is where you need to go. You can shop for confidence for your favorite jerseys and caps and shirts and jackets and hoodies, all at shopsportsmerch.com. Jim, we got a couple of live questions here from our live studio audience. I want to mention that when you join adfreeshows.com, not only do you get bonus series like Tuesdays with the Taskmaster and the book with Kevin Sullivan, and so many great archival bonus episodes where we sat down with Jim Hurd and so many others, even Jim Crockett. Go check it out for yourself right now at adfreeshows.com. But you can be a part of the live studio audience. And I want to recognize and give a shout out to a bunch of folks who were with us this morning. I know Lindsay's in the house, and Coach Rosie's here. Shout out to him. Happy birthday, Coach Rosie. I think we've also got some questions here. Let's hit some of those. Greg Jacobson says,
good morning, Conrad. Does Coach Rosie work?
Here's how he's able to join us. Every week. He's on the West Coast, so it's before work for him.
Oh,
so he's hours behind us when we're recording. He's actually a high school basketball coach who's helped a whole lot of kids accomplish a lot of their academic and sports goals. So shout out to Coach Rosie on his special day. He's got a question
about the good work there, Coach. Keep up the good work.
He wants to know about basketball. He's wanting to talk about the tournament. Of course, if you're a college sports fan right now, everybody's talking about the tournament. Coach wants to know, do you think the Sooners should have made the NCAA tournament?
Oh, marginal. If, just as a OU fan and a native Oklahoman, I would love to have seen it. But I don't know if they were good enough. And they had some good times, but they had a lot of inconsistencies. So, but the coach is doing a nice job, and they just got to keep recruiting good players, and that's the key to everything, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You got good players. You got a chance to be doing a good job.
Lindsay, who's joining us, she wants to know, how many of the Rock shirts do you think the King has owned over the years? That's a fun question.
Yeah. I know he's got more than one. I've seen them all. When Rock left, he had a wardrobe cabinet. We all got one there at AEW. But I'm trying to think. All the announcers share a closet. It's on wheels. So make sure that all your shit is wrinkled. Get another case. Spread the clothing out. But they're like me. I'm like they are. I bring shirts and things that I'll wear once and then put back in the closet, and all they do is get wrinkled. So I need an assistant that can iron, and that would help. But anyway, I don't know where I was. I was rambling again. Where was I, Conrad? Do you remember?
Well, you were telling us what day the book comes out, because Lindsay wants to know, what day does the book come out, and is there an option for a personalized autograph?
There are going to be autograph copies of the book. Yes, Lindsay. Personalizing creates a whole different element. I if we can work it out logistically, sure. I would like, in a perfect world, to have signed books available at our website, jrsbbq.com. That's the simplest way of doing it, at least in my opinion. And then when I make some appearances, I'm going to do all I can to bring books with me, so that I can certainly personalize them, because it's just a whole different world, and it's not as crazy and fast and all that stuff. But the book comes out on May 7th. Now's a good time to order, but keep an eye on our website, because that's where I got an idea for a promotion involving signed books. I'm not going to promise they'll be personalized, but there are ways to get them personalized. But signed books will be available at our website coming soon.
I can't wait. Stay tuned to jrbook50.com to pre-order, or of course, jrsbbq.com. Maybe the most important question comes to us from Greg Jacobson. He wants to know, Jim, how are you feeling these days?
How you feeling, JR? I get that. How many times a week do you think I get that? Which is great, because people are paying attention. Tomorrow, on Friday, I'm supposed to get the ports. There's 3 ports in my chest that they were used to feed me intravenously my antibiotics to help heal my ankle. And it's working. That was the way to go. It's so much more effective than taking pills. So, I had that done twice a day. I had a nurse come twice a day, every day, to do my antibiotics. So I'm getting those ports out tomorrow if all goes well. And so there's that. My hip is very sore. I had 28 staples removed from my hip. And here's the crazy redneck part of this story. I didn't even know I had staples in my hip. I knew my hip hurt, but I didn't. It was all heavily taped, like you see those NFL guys get.
Oh, I see.
That heavy tape. And so I didn't peel the tape back and expose the wound. I just suffered. Suffered. So take another pill. So anyhow, I'm better, but it still hurts like hell. Hurts like hell right now. As a matter of fact, it's hurting. So it's just a matter. I got to get in the right spot, get it set the right way. Then when I get up nowadays, I feel like I'm 150 years old, because my equilibrium's kind of been affected. So, but I'm feeling pretty good. Energy wise, I'm great. I'm hoping to be on the call for the St. Louis for the next pay-per-view for AEW. Like I said, I damn near pay my own way to go see Danielson and Osprey. It's Danielson and Osprey, right?
Yeah.
I want to see that.
April 21st.
Yeah, I want to see that in St. Louis. I like St. Louis.
Great wrestling town.
Oh boy. I was spearheaded a couple of big promotions involving St. Louis wrestling, where we brought back a bunch of NWA champions, and honored Sam Muchnick, the promoter there. So it's got a lot of history, and so many greats established their legacy, or begin to establish at least the foundation for their legacy in St. Louis. It was a town that it was just called St. Louis. It's like saying you're going to work the Garden. Well, I'm going to work New York or whatever. It was St. Louis is always going to be special. It was kind of the MSG, the Madison Square Garden of the Midwest. And Sam Muchnick was a amazing promoter. He drew all that money, all those years, on one town, much like Paul Bosch did in Texas, even though Paul had other towns other than Houston, but Houston was the bell cow. And they had a lot in common. There were 2 of the guys that would pay you, and they give you a percentage, for example, or the main event got 3%, 3 points. And it came up to $1,402.70. You got exactly that. You got the cents, you got everything. That's just how you earned it. It's part of your pay. So here you go. You notice they didn't get bonused. They may have got bonus somewhere down the road, but bottom line is that it was uh, just an insane accomplishment to promote one town all those years and make a great living.
Well, we are making a great living here on Grilling JR, and that's because you guys are supporting our great sponsors like our day one sponsor, BlueChew. If you haven't tried it already, here's a spoiler. JR and I can both vouch for it. It works, and it works well. It works so well. Please try it. You won't regret
it. Go ahead.
It's got the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Try them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process, guys, is just so simple. You sign up at BlueChew.com, you consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within a few days. And here's the best part, y'all. It's all done online. You don't have to go to the doctor's office. There's no awkward or uncomfortable conversations. You don't even have to wait in line at the pharmacy. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA. They're prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. But there won't be anything discreet about your package. BlueChew wants to help you have better sex. So discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try BlueChew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay the $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is JR and you receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring today's podcast.
Absolutely. Great people, loyal. They put out a great product, folks. And like Conrad tongue-in-cheek said, but being serious, we both are customers. We both are users of the product. So we know it works. Now, maybe I think, the guy on the ad-free shows that seemed to make the most noise about BlueChew when it first came out or started advertising was Bischoff.
Oh, he loves it.
Yeah. So it's good because he loves a product that works.
Yes.
And, it's just, I find it gives me confidence. I'm sure it helps me physiologically, but I find it gives me confidence. And I think that's important for a guy my age. Can't lose your confidence. Can't be afraid of the fastball.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to give her the high hard when you go to BlueChew.com and you use the promo code JR. Why not try it for free? Just pay the $5 shipping.
Yeah.
See if it's for you. I think you're going to love it. That's BlueChew.com and the promo code is JR. Jim, we're going to cut it right there and we'll pick up Rock 99 here in the coming weeks. Next week, I'm excited for us to be talking about WrestleMania 15. It's going to be you coming back after a bout with Bell's palsy. We'll be touching on that. We'll also talk about you coming back in sort of a short-lived heel run, I guess. We've got Dr. Death. We'll have fake announce tables you're setting up. We'll talk about Ed Ferrara. We'll talk about your return in Philadelphia. And of course, what a better time to talk about WrestleMania 15. We're right here at the 25-year anniversary of it. And we're back in Philadelphia 25 years later with The Rock in the main event. Man, what's old is new again in wrestling, huh?
Oh yeah. What great memories you're making. Give me that grocery list of things. And they all had a picture in my mind. They all had an image. And so it'll be fun. That's we're getting back into the time frame that, and events that I have a better recall. And so, that'll be a fun show to say the least. Hope people send in their questions too, because it's always good to find out or discover what others are thinking and what they want to know. And we're here to serve, shall we say.
Well, and you're serving some fine quality products over at jrsbbq.com. The wife made me some protein last night, threw it on the Traeger. So when I got home, there it was. And guess what? JR's all-purpose seasoning was just what the doctor ordered. They've also got over at jrsbbq.com, not one, but two types of barbecue sauce, the same sauce you've grown up with and learned to love. How about the Chipotle ketchup? How about the main event mustard? And the newest product over there, JR's Red Ass Hot Sauce. They've got not only these fabulous sauces and seasonings, but they've got collectibles too. You want a signed trading card or an action figure, maybe a gift set, maybe you need some grill tools and things like that. Whatever you're looking for, it is the ultimate place to get a gift for the wrestling fan in your life. And I know a lot of times when you buy a bottle from JR, it winds up on a shelf and you think it's like a cool display thing with your action figures. And hey man, roll tide, more power to you. I want to encourage you, buy 2 bottles, buy one to try and one to display, because once you try it, you're going to be, as my pal Jim would say, in a reorder situation. Is that right, Jim?
Yep, without a doubt. Don't run out. Don't run
No,
out.
don't do that.
I cooked last night. I had a spinach salad I got at Publix, and I poured it on a plate or platter, a paper platter, to be honest with you, not too exotic. And I made, and I put 2 pieces of salmon in a skillet, and I seasoned it with JR seasoning, and it was absolutely phenomenal, just phenomenal. And it's idiot proof. Hey, look, if I can make something taste good, it's idiot proof. And that seasoning is a difference maker. Just brings out the flavor, and it's just amazing. So there's a lot of ways to use our products, or that Conrad said, which I appreciate. They're great gift ideas for, any upcoming holiday, birthday, whatever, or just to do something nice for somebody. It's never a bad thing. How would you feel if somebody sent you some JRs in the mail? And would you be happy when you received it? I think you would. I think you would. So maybe that's an idea, just to be nice. And I love that concept. It's a win-win for all of us. So give us a shot. JRsBBQ.com. The store never closes, and we appreciate you tuning in, to say the least, and checking our products out.
I appreciate when you guys bring some good questions. So if you don't mind, do me a favor, head on over to grillingjr.com. That's our YouTube channel. And underneath the video that you're seeing right now, the one about The Rock from 1998, drop us a question for next week about WrestleMania 15. We're going to be using YouTube to try to find some of those questions. We're also going to be running some polls about different topics. So if you want to sort of dictate the show, or you have a show suggestion, we're soliciting that feedback on our YouTube now at grillingjr.com. So if you've got a question about WrestleMania 15, the first of 3 Rock Austin main events, right at the 25-year anniversary of this year's WrestleMania, it's WrestleMania 15 on deck next week. And if you've got a question for Jim, just ask it on YouTube, grillingjr.com. If you'd like to keep up with what we're doing in the meantime, Jim is on Twitter at JRsBBQ. Our show is easy to find. It's at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram. It's Grilling JR over on Facebook. And we appreciate all the support that you guys have thrown our way on our YouTube. Just passed a milestone after not really prioritizing YouTube. We've really focused just on the podcast RSS feed, but in the new year, we're going to be doing more questions and polls and things like that. So be sure to join us at grillingjr.com. As a friend of mine says, it costs nothing to look. And it costs nothing to look at grillingjrtees.com as well. We've got brand new shirts celebrating JR's 50 years in professional wrestling. We've even got fun stuff like shot glasses and cutting boards. But man, look at that shirt right there, Jim. With the book coming out, business is about to pick up. That's a fun shirt right there. You need to be sporting that shirt.
It's in my closet in Oklahoma. I know right where it's hanging.
We got to get you some to Jacksonville, and we got to get you back behind the microphone. Jim, everybody listening to this wants to know, when will we hear you calling wrestling again? Is the hope that it's going to be Dynasty? That's the one that's circled April 21st, St. Louis.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope it is. I'd love to go back to St. Louis, one of my favorite cities, get some nice barbecue while I'm there. They got some good stuff. Got a lot of good red meat and a lot of protein in my diet these days. So I'm hopeful Dynasty on pay-per-view being my next assignment. Let's be honest about it. A guy my age in my lifetime won't have too many more opportunities to call a match that has the potential of being a classic than Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay. I got to see that match. And obviously, if I'm not there, I'll be watching it on pay-per-view, but I got to see that match. It's too good to be true. And I think when it's all said and done, many of you will agree with me on that one.
I can't wait for you guys to check it out. It's going to be awesome. And I'm looking forward to being back here with you next week, Jim. I have a blast.
Hey, Conrad, I got some news for you.
Oh, you do? Let's hear it.
Well, when I first started on my sugar diabetes issues, I weighed almost 250. Yesterday, I stepped on the scales at Publix. I got a big set of feeding scales, animal scales, and I weighed 210.
How about that, man? Congratulations. Way to go.
210. So
fighting weight. Look at you.
My high school senior year, during my senior year football, I weighed 195. So I'm getting back in that. Not that there's any plans to come out of retirement and play football. I could get into a stance, but I couldn't get up. So we're not doing that. Well, anyway.
Are you still going to continue the weight loss journey?
Yeah.
Dude, if we could get 5 more pounds off of you, I could make a call. I could get you in the cruiserweight tournament for WWE. I mean, if Swoggle can be cruiserweight champ, you can be cruiserweight champ.
Yeah, let's discuss
that. We'll talk all that and a lot more next week. We'll be hearing from Jim. We're going to be talking about WrestleMania 15. We want to hear from you too. Drop us a question on our YouTube at grillingjr.com. And we'll see you next week right here on Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Thanks, everybody. We love you. Thanks for tuning in, and bring somebody with you next week.